evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Design Nuances Edu series. It's a series which is very academically oriented. The idea of this is that at the end of this session, you need to have a takeaway, and that takeaway is learning a new aspect, something new related to design, fashion, or architecture. You interact with an expert and absorb the knowledge that they have to share. But in addition, you also get introduced to a new school and understand why they do what they do. And through this series, you understand how a complex topic is broken down into something simplistic and probably would help you understand the world of design better. Today, we have the School of Design and Innovation. That's from RV University. And they're represented by Professor Sudhakar Damodaraswamy, right? And he's an expert in the area of transdisciplinary design. And the topic for today is transdisciplinary design, a new pathway to strategic design. So, Professor Damodaraswamy is a professor of practice and program coordinator for transdisciplinary context. And this is something that is very interesting at the university. A little more about Professor Sudhakar. He's a faculty member. He's got over 30 years of expertise in experience design. He's an advocate for design principles. He loves working with the learning, with learners, right? And young learners on that front. He's developed several frameworks aimed at expanding the role and impact of design in the world, right? He does a lot of research in that area. And I'll hand it over to him. But beyond academia, he's an avid reader, he's a nature enthusiast, and he loves farming as well. All right. So I'm going to stop my screen share here, Professor. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to continue with that screen share. One last thing I need to mention is that those of you who are interested in applying for RV University, the School of Design and Innovation, I'm going to share this application link in the chat of YouTube, and you can click on this link and apply to the school, right? But for now, back to the session with Professor Sudhakar. Thank you so much for coming in today, Professor.
My pleasure, Dion, and thank you for the introduction.
And looking forward to really understanding a lot more about transdisciplinary design.
Can I share my screen now?
Absolutely, you can.
Hi, good afternoon. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about transdisciplinary design, a new discipline that's being offered by my school. So I'm going to start this presentation, this talk today, by qualifying what this title means and why this title, right? Why this very specific title regarding pathways to strategic design. So let me just first qualify what the title means and why. First, what is transdisciplinary design? So we probably have heard of many disciplinary models, including cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and now we have something called transdisciplinary. Now, why is transdisciplinary unique, right? So this is a lovely presentation. I mean, there's a lovely graphic which I have downloaded, and you can see more about it in the link I've shared. So what happens in transdisciplinarity as a whole, as and we consider transdisciplinarity in its essence. What happens here is you have many disciplines, and then you are amalgamating it over and beyond even synthesizing it, which is what interdisciplinary would do, right? So here you would amalgamate knowledge from all the disciplines and probably reframe them into new frameworks. In essence, create new knowledge. And where does design have a role to play in all of this? That's the essence of what our talk today. The second thing I want to qualify is what is strategic design? So I'd like to explain strategic design by counterposing it with what you can call as tactical design, right? So tactical is what we know. We design products, and there is a method to how we design a product. There's a process to how we design a process design a product, and that constitutes the tactical part of how we go about design. Strategic design, on the other hand, is upfront. It is ahead of the tactical phase of design. So you see the equivalents. You have the tactical equivalents on the left, and you have the strategic equivalents on the right. So, if you're designing a product, you first need to understand the user needs for the product. So that's strategic in nature. So strategic design is upfront. It tries to address the why and the what versus the how, which is what tactical design would be. In essence, it's a key driver. During strategic design, you're trying to establish the key drivers for design rather than designing the destination itself. So we have transdisciplinary design, and we have something called strategic design, and one of them is a pathway to the other. So let's explore this even further. New pathways. So how do they connect? So I downloaded this from online. This is a drawing that's been posted by Transdisciplinary Designer, and he's written this article on why transdisciplinary, and his own 5 learnings on the journey of design. Right? So he's written this, a very interesting article. Again, I recommend that you read this to understand this better. But if you go to the graphic on the right, here it becomes significant. Because you started, we know what graphic design and what graphic design delivers as artifacts. And then we have industrial design, and industrial design obviously delivers products of all kinds. And then we have this new field called interaction design, where the role of design was enhanced. Because you're not only designing an artifact or the end result, you're not only focusing on the tactical aspects of design, you also have to focus on the strategic aspects. Because we are in new territory as far as when you're really designing, digital interfaces, you're at least in the early days of digital interfaces, you're venturing into unknown territory. And you really need to establish, why you're doing it, how, and what is the best way to do it ahead of, actually designing or, delivering that interface which people interact with. So it starts getting strategic from there on. And then, of course, design is also expanded to kind of, designing processes and business models and systems and services. So you can see that the scope of design has gradually been increasing in the strategic space. And it's set to increase even further. And that's where our topic for the day comes in. I also have this another lovely paper that you all should read and to definitely get a much better idea of how transdisciplinarity is going to influence design. So here, this is a paper. I mean, you have this schematic on the left. Let me elaborate that first. So design delivers a function. It creates a form. It communicates meaning, and it also establishes value. Right? It already does that. Design already does that today. And to do that, it is already transdisciplinary in nature, because you're putting a foot into humanities, you have art, the aspect of art and culture coming into, how we design things. Of course, technology is a huge influence of what we design and, the solutions that we create. You have economics and value and, affordability and aspects such as that also coming in. So it's already transdisciplinary in nature, right? So why do we have a paper here saying, as recent as 2019, that that transdisciplinary knowledge can enhance or at least can embellish this, our idea of design, okay, and improve our systemic approach to design. So essentially, what we can conclude from here is that our though design by its own nature is transdisciplinary in nature. I think the footprint into transdisciplinarity can improve and must improve, and that's what we are going to establish today. So what does transdisciplinarity do? In my opinion, transdisciplinarity strategically reframes. So you have here a set of normal ways of doing things, which is on the left, the normative ways of doing things. And then you have a set of the alternative ways in which the established, the conventional things that we are used to can be reframed or restated. And through the simple act of restating, right, you're suddenly enhancing, the role of design, and you're enhancing the complexity of design, and you're also enhancing, what design can deliver as well. So you have 7 examples here. You have house on the left and reframed as a habitat. What happens when you reframe it as habitat? So I'm going to run you through about 6 examples in the following slides, where each of these alternative framings, right, how they enhance, not only, the demand for design, or at least our own capability of design, but also what it can deliver as design. So we have a first example. We had a house on the left, and now it's been reframed as habitat. And when you reframe it as a habitat, and this is an example here of a habitat, some installation, some conceptual model created by this gentleman called Jenny Sabin. So he's created this conceptual idea of what a habitat of the future can potentially be. So you see it's very computational, right? It's in terms of the pattern, in terms of its flexibility and all that. It's been done through computational means, so it's parametric. It is intelligent. Apologies for the word artificial intelligence. It's intelligent because they have coded in this space. It can sense moods, and it can reflect and respond to moods. That's what this specific installation does. So it's intelligent. It can respond. All parametric designs can respond. If you change something, something else changes. So it's reconfigurable to many ways. It's very adaptable. It can grow modular and things like that. It is also sensorial, because the membrane they use, they've created a specific the whole material itself was developed for this installation. So you have a photoluminescent material that's being used here, which is sensorial in nature. So the role of material is now vastly enhanced. So what you see here is when you reframe something that was called a house into a habitat, and suddenly the variables for design increase. And our role in the world, in terms of creating artifacts, spaces, environments that we live in, our lived experience in this world itself is enhanced. So the variables increase, and it enhances the role of design. It enhances the value of design. So here's my second example. If you remember, we had transportation on the left and it's been reframed as mobility. The minute you talk about mobility, then you talk about master plans. You're talking about, master plans that are allowing, are mobilizing, right? That are a mobilizing element for a huge city to function with all its, million kinds of demands, million people with a million persuasions, right? They're all pursuing something. They need to be mobile. They need to be in different places. How do you plan? How do you kind of master plan and facilitate this very humongous, uh, uh, demand for mobility? So here again, you can see the variables increase because, mobility is not just the master plan. It is also the nodes, the spaces which people are led to. It is also vehicles, right? You might need new vehicles that can enable the sense of mobility, right? In future, we're going to have, autonomous vehicles and how do how do we design for mobility in a place like Bangalore with all its infrastructure constraints? So the variables increase, complexity of design increases, the role of design in a sense increases, and ultimately the value of design increases. The third example, eco-friendly, the term eco-friendly reframed as circular design, which IKEA uses. You can see, the IKEA model of circularity. And in Europe, it's already law. In the European Parliament, it has been passed this law. And every company has a time frame to kind of, start achieving some level of circularity with, the materials they create. So again, here, you can see the variables increase because you're not only talking about, recycling at best or reuse, you're talking about refurbish, all integrated. There is remanufacture, there is resell. So the whole gamut of things needs to be accommodated in your, life cycle of, making and selling things. Again, variables increase when you reframe. I talked about health on the left, and then it's been reframed as microcare. Uh, given the pressure on our medical systems, and how do we still get individual attention, right? So new technologies are being developed, and again, you see a whole lot of variables that are supporting as well. Some variables support, some variables enlarge in the scope, some variables, demand more. But overall, you can see that, the role of design itself stays enhanced. So you can have microcare, you have medical grade equipments at home today. You can have targeted interventions in your body. You can have, individual empowerment. How much can you treat yourself, and respond to your own health parameters? So it again increases the scope for design and the value of the design. We come to our fifth example, I think, where I talked about learning, very important, very close, something close to us all as teachers and learners. So you can take, models. This is a new model. Action mapping is a framework, and it's a kind of schemata that's been created by this lady called Cathy Moore, where she's kind of turned the whole learning process on its head, right? So it's now backwards design in the sense of, it's, I mean, we're basically swinging from a content-based approach to an activity-based approach with clear end goals in sight and learning only as much as you need to learn for that very particular thing. So you're, much more confident in what you've achieved. And all those things can change, by reframing. And by reframing, like I said, like I have been repeating, the variables for design increase. Food reframed as farm to fork. And with digital technology, you can see a lot of how we know it. We again can have a very enhanced food system. It can be sustainable. It can be very transparent. Where did it come from? What went into it? And for the farmer, the farmer manages the farm through data. So it's much more precise in its management. You can have models of direct to consumer models. And so again, it all starts with a very, very simple, intervention here, right? First, which is like just reframing the scope, reframing, what in essence is what should be designed. So the minute you reframe that, then you have a whole lot of other variables and so many, the whole ecosystem of what you need to design. It gets systemic and it gets much larger. I had to add this example as well. We talked about apartments as we know it today, and where people live in high density apartments. And there is this concept of pocket neighborhoods that's coming up in the US, and where it's more communal and more human scale, and how new kind of variables and parameters that you can establish to improve what is the normative version of so this is another example. So having said all this, having shown you all a number of examples, and having mentioned that that in essence, that design can get first strategic. See, these are all strategic reframes, right? Because you have a word that denotes something, and in effect defines how the design of that has to be attempted, and then you strategically reframe it into something new, and the whole process and the idea of design itself changes, and you suddenly now need new approaches to how to design. So what role does design play in this whole aspect of transdisciplinarity in general, right? How does design empower transdisciplinarity? Uh, that's the big question. And I believe that design as a discipline is beautifully positioned to play this role, play this very integrative role, play this very amalgamative role. Because if you remember how transdisciplinarity differs from other interdisciplinary models, right? We said transdisciplinarity amalgamates and creates something novel and new over and beyond what exists as disciplinary knowledge. And designers, I think we model things, right? We create schemes, schematic diagrams. We think visually. So our ability to synthesize is very high. So design can, in a sense, play a huge role, and that's what this course will prepare a designer to do. But what does it require? What does it require, right? For design as a discipline, what does it require? So the attitudinal position of design will again get enhanced, right? So we're talking about so we have new principles that start coming in and saying this is a new way of doing this. Design will be participatory. You will involve the end user in the design, not just research him or try to find out what he needs, but involve him in the actual design process itself. Can that be done? So it is set to get participatory. Design is set to get persistent. It's not, it's something that will be very long term. We will get into problem contexts that will require probably 2 years, 5 years, 10 years maybe to design and solve, right? So design probably will get into something that's much more persistent and long. Design will be transcendental. Obviously, it will transcend today's own definitions and our own. So we need to have definitions which transcend the limited definitions that we live by today. It will address societal contexts more than business contexts, because I think today, given the state of our planet and the pressures to solve and solve so many things, improve so many things, I think the contexts are all societal or planetary or ecological. Design will also design at scale. I think design will start or needs to design much larger things beyond the services, over and beyond even the services, business processes, I think we would need to design very large scale things. And as a discipline, we design. So, we just need to design bigger or, more complex things. And also what we deliver as designers will change. Right? It's not going to be just products and services. Services meaning process flows, essentially, right? It will be frameworks. Can we design new frameworks? Can we design new technologies, not just use technologies, but even design, envision new technologies? Of course, we will need a help from a lot of other disciplines to do this. It will get interdisciplinary as well. It will get multidisciplinary as well. But then I think the charge is being led by transdisciplinarity, in my opinion, because a total new way of framing things is the need of the hour, given our problems and today our lived context in this world today. So we will design technologies. We will design maybe just adaptations. We might just go and change things. We will design policies. We will support the design of policies. We will design processes. We will design new propositions, just imaginations, right? Propositions will be new imaginations. Why not? What if? The new ways of looking at this. We will even probably design new paradigms. Science has always been on the forefront of creating, or philosophy has been forefront of creating new paradigms to follow. So we are a discipline as equivalent as any other discipline. Very ambitiously, and probably I would like to say that we might even probably design new paradigms for the world, for how humans live, our own concepts of culture, religion, spirituality, and such. We might even design can venture even there. So this is a very, very ambitious model, but of course, we start small, and this new course that we offer is the first step in this, a very small baby step in this direction. But I'm painting a very ambitious picture, definitely here, yes. And but yes, this is where we should be going, and we can go. And there is this new concept that can drive our progress towards this goal. And why is it important? I just want to rest my case with, see, the problems that abound in this world are already so beautifully catalogued in the Sustainable Development Goals, right? Created by the UN. And these have a lot of traction. And I think one of the best things for humanity that's happened in the past 100 years, probably, according to me, is this. Because, now there's a catalog of problems. And that is at least what we want. What we want has been established to a large extent. And so how do we really know poverty, right? The first word. How do we achieve that? You cannot achieve it with our current models of thinking. And that's where I rest my case that, we need to go beyond how we think, and transdisciplinarity and transdisciplinary design as an enabler of transdisciplinarity will be the way to go. Thank you. That's a word from me.
Thanks so much for that, Professor Sudhakar. Very interesting. If you can keep your screen shared, all right, and maybe go to some of the previous slides right at the beginning, where you have specified the earlier slides, the strategic, the tactical and strategic, right? So now when we come back to this slide after you've done your presentation, this makes a lot more sense, I should say, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, from a strategic perspective, we are really looking at, can we say that we are looking at a more long-term application or something that doesn't change? or something that's more prepared for the longer term?
So not necessarily, not necessarily. It is very context dependent. Uh, you know, but I think given the kind of problems that we are talking about here, right? Uh, that which is, say, we want to go beyond, the current level of problem solving that we are capable of, and, we are confident of. So when we go to larger and more complex problems, definitely they won't be. Yes.
Right. All right. If you can go to the next slide as well. This one. Sorry, the previous one. Yeah. This one I thought was very interesting because the interdisciplinarity talks about, or the transdisciplinarity here really says that the applications of design are wide. It can be applied in any context, right? Or it cannot be a silo the way we look at it at this stage.
See, today we borrow from these other disciplines, right? We borrow. They inform us, or they demand, or they set the boundaries more than. They are only demanding as far as, by setting boundaries. They set the boundary conditions. That's why, we say transdisciplinarity transcends. We have to go above and beyond the boundaries, right? How much money is enough money? Who is going to answer that question ever, right? So it's not the economist, because he is rooted in his models, right? Because his truth is that, we need transaction. So how do we go beyond that? I mean, we're talking about, see, we are at the cusp of a situation where, we really need to challenge a lot of our notions. We have to aim for the stars, and maybe we reach them. So we need to challenge our notions. So I would say that, yes, we are transdisciplinary today. We borrow from all this, but they only set us boundary conditions. But I think what design will do is, along with other disciplines, even they have to scale up, to boldly think. See, we can envision the future, right? We can imagine. Can we paint an imaginary picture of what the future of, let's say, money will be? Who's best positioned to do that?
Yeah.
Who is best positioned to tell that story, narrate that? Narrate that into a, something that everybody can understand, because everyone has to understand it as well. It cannot be someone in an ivory tower who can speculate on these things. Everybody needs to it has to be a common consciousness, right?
So transdisciplinarity is, would you say it's an entire new mindset that we need to adapt to, right? That it cannot, it's a whole new mindset. Like for example, let me say, if we want to stop, or if you want to reduce the number of people jumping red lights, jumping signals, right? That really doesn't come under product design or communication design or urban design. It's a combination of all of these things,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It really needs to be looked at as a system. It really needs to be looked at beyond design. It needs to be looked at as a practice, something that's sustainable, that'll, we make these changes and sustains over time, right? So from that aspect, do you think that transdisciplinarity is a extension of changing mindset?
See, the very interesting thing is, actually, very curiously, and there is a project. I know someone who's working on a project just like that, in the transdisciplinary space. The conventional designer, like you and me, is working on, let's say, in this very specific instance, reducing accidents at this very specific junction where there seems to be an unusual number of accidents, right? So what we are leveraging end of the day is our own skill, our existing skill sets, in terms of pattern finding and, visualizing, so we are still leveraging our core strengths as designers. Okay. So as far as skills concerned, it's still springing from what skill sets we assume or we have as designers, right? That we inculcate in ourselves as designers. But as to the mindset, where it needs to change is this attitude of how do we work together, right? Because the traffic police, right? Traffic police has changed its mindset and come to a very unconventional space to solve its problem, which is already a beautiful change in mindset. They have not gone to, some other discipline. They've come to a designer to solve this problem. It is happening right now as we speak. Someone's doing this project on, mitigating accidents at this, intersection. And it's a designer just like us. I mean, so it's the same skill set, but of course, definitely there's an attitudinal change. And of course, as we start addressing problems of this nature, right? New methods and new, new tools will come up as well, right? So once we get started, we are looking at new tools springing up to help us do this, new methods also, new ways of doing things.
Interesting. And it's very encouraging to hear that the traffic cops have come to a designer to solve this
Yeah,
problem
yeah,
rather than
yeah.
go to some engineer or,
That's yeah, yeah,
because it's more than just a product or
yeah,
more
yeah,
than just a system that's in
yeah,
place that needs to
yeah,
change.
yeah.
There's a question from Murli, who's asking, is the transdisciplinary approach applied in design education by RV in all the branches they offer?
We do, we do. In fact, we actually start with a transdisciplinary exposure in the first year, and right now we have our final batch of students. The first batch of students are in final semester right now, and the final project is also transdisciplinary in nature. And it's fantastic, to see the kind of problems that spring up when you start reframing, like I said, right? The strategic reframing. And someone's got to design it. And these are problem statements which we didn't even think of as, problems that we fix. And of course, very challenging, because you have this problem statement that, you haven't fixed before. It's not your, disciplinary skill set cannot help. It's not a product, it's not a solution, nor is, let's say some communication artifact. It's a mix of all things. It is beyond all that. Sometimes it's just an idea. The solution itself is a new idea, new way of doing things, new questions. Some of these problems really raise a very interesting question to the key stakeholders. So yeah, we are doing it. We have embraced uh, transdisciplinarity, and it's an experiment, and it's a fantastic experiment, very exciting for us right now.
All right. But you also have a specific field in design, right? A specific specialization in design. Could you
Yeah,
give us a
yes.
little information
Yeah.
about that?
So we're starting this in the coming year. We're starting transdisciplinary design in the coming year. We already have a number of applications for this course, and we have developed a curriculum. We have benchmarked the curriculum. We have benchmarked a curriculum with academic thought in the space. And though we created this curriculum on our own, I think I think we are in agreement with a lot of thinking that's going on about our curriculum, and it is fully fleshed out curriculum. It's a very interesting curriculum. And of course, the two main, directions that, the transdisciplinary designer will have to embrace is one is the ability to kind of go and find information, right? Which is research. Let's not call it research because research is all this. Again, let's reframe that word. I think, starting today, we reframe it. So, so we go, I don't know, how do you collect the data that you need to design? And then, how do you synthesize the data you've collected? Into narratives, which a lot of more people, all the stakeholders can understand it. Then put in their viewpoints, and over and beyond that, how do you kind of now come up with strategic directions? Yeah, it's going to be a very demanding discipline, at least in the beginning, and I think it is a discipline for the future. Now, I'm not speaking for RVU alone, but I think as design as a discipline worldwide for I think it's just inevitable pathway to start following.
Awesome. Awesome. Very interesting. So this Hardeep Kaur who's asking, could you please cite some real use cases that students in RV are putting in their transdisciplinary concepts or exposure? Do you have any idea what those
I can
students are
share
working on?
something. I actually wanted to share two case studies of our own work today. Actually, I did, but then that's I mean students IP, and I really didn't want to kind of reveal it. But I will tell you the kind of problem statements they've come up. Okay. I met this batch just this afternoon. Just this afternoon, I met this group of students who are coming for the final feedback, and so they're asking, the whole idea of evaluation, right? Examination, evaluation for students. Okay. So they're questioning it. I mean, it's not runaway questioning. Okay, we can say, hey, we don't want to be evaluated. No, no. We have, on one hand, they are constrained by the boundaries set by the larger policies. But within that framework, where are we failing today in how we evaluate students is the problem statement. And they've identified where we fail. It's such a beautiful statement. I can't reveal that very key statement they've come up with, which was mind blowing for me in terms of, the student told me, you are evaluating me in the wrong place, where you should be evaluating me in a different place, a different aspect, and a different variable is what you should. And I couldn't agree more, right? So yeah, that's one problem that the statement that comes. Another problem, beautiful problem, I think for me, I think I'm very interested in this. See, our view, right? We've set out to be multidisciplinary and as a university, we set out to be very interdisciplinary as a university. And 3 years down the line, we're still kind of, wrestling with, the nuts and bolts of how does that happen? And so they asked that same question and they have come up with some solutions. How do you kind of, peer-to-peer collaboration across schools? We're not even talking about just across, disciplines within design schools, but across schools. How do you enable that? Someone has designed that. It is a design problem. It's just that all these days we didn't accept it as a problem that we can take it up. And with our insights, right, our level of empathy and our level of really listening to the user, I think we come up with much greater insights as to how this needs to be addressed. So that's another beautiful problem they work on. I mean, there are a lot of problems like there are a whole lot of students working on how to really integrate artificial intelligence into societal contexts, right? All kinds of societal contexts. And immediately, it's not just you really have to turn things around, to really see how intelligence suddenly, today you have very, very organized, very structured system, and then that structured system becomes intelligent suddenly. And that requires a whole lot of reframing, and we have a lot of problems faces in that area. Yeah, we've been.
Right, thanks for that. Hardeep is asking again, do you think the transdisciplinary thought process is confusing and adding more dimensions rather than being focused in a single design stream?
Lovely question. Lovely question. See, this is something we will need to resolve as we go. So we already do something called systems design in design schools, and we handle absurd amount of complexity and width of information when we try to I don't know create or understand all the system components of water shortage in Bangalore, okay, or in Chennai, right? You address something like what are the reasons for water shortage, and the complexity is already very, very huge, but tackleable. We've been doing it already. And that's where I'm confident that, this complexity for us, because we are visual, Because when we create visualizations, right, we condense a lot of information into very, very beautiful small schematics. So it doesn't matter if it's complex. I think we can do it. But again, it's an experiment. See, we're just taking the first step, and of course, but today suddenly, I mean, we just, I mean, it's inevitable that we think beyond what we're doing today, because what we're doing today is only making the problem bigger. So we need to bite the bullet on this.
Just building up on that thought, and taking an example of, let's say, the jumping red signals, right? If we put it on that now, I would say, or rather, would you say that a product designer would think of possibly designing a better light system, or putting some maybe warning systems on the road, or integrating on the road? Maybe a communication designer would say, okay, put in some communication elements. But a transdisciplinary designer would go across all these and say, listen, the problem is that people are jumping the roads. So it could be somebody's in a hurry, right? And how do you account for that? Somebody's late to office, and how do you sensitize them that that they're putting their lives in danger and it's not worth the risk, right? Um, and accordingly maybe take measures. So do you think the complexity is good because it helps you think from various perspectives?
Yeah, I also want to add that, see, the traditional disciplines also have a huge role to play, because end of the day, the solutions are all tangible solutions, right? So they're not just strategic solutions. They have to really, there's nuts and bolts, they're physical, there's hardware, there's software, there's messaging that's happening. So the traditional disciplines do not get undermined by this. It's just that, there is a forefront, upfront, that a lot of things have to be done. And like you said, there are a lot of complex interactions, right? And you need to study and model these interactions. And scientists do it, computational scientists do it today. Uh, do you think we can do it better? I think we
Um,
can do it better because we have a more organic way of doing it. Like for instance, design thinking, right? If you counterpose design thinking against management thinking, of course, we are not rigorous, but then we reach the same end result most often, right? And much more efficiently. So it's an attitudinal shift, and I hope I've answered that question.
you have, I mean, you have put in a different dimension uh,
Yeah,
to this. All right.
yeah,
So maybe definitely something to think about, right? Maybe the experts. So what you've added is that really the designers are looking at things from a very different perspective, very human perspective, right? Which maybe a scientist or an engineer would be very objective about it, but there's a
yeah,
lot of subjectivity involved as
yeah,
well.
absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
so maybe the designers could find solutions where others don't, could find better solutions.
yeah, yeah.
So very interesting on that front. Um, right. So we'll probably wait for another 1 or 2 minutes for more questions to come in. Um, but in the meantime, if you can um, let us know, if someone is interested in this transdisciplinary program at RV, um, what do they really need to be? What would you be looking for in them?
Energy, curiosity, uh, it's just motivation, willing to do the hard work. Uh, Actually, we don't, let's say we can actually discount a number of lot of skill sets which conventional, design or disciplines require, right? Like, for instance, if you want to be an illustrator, you have to draw. I mean, you cannot get away without drawing to be an illustrator. Or if you want to be a product designer, you need to have a fascination or engineering. You need to kind of be good with your hands to, make things, model things. Here, actually, those skill sets are a little discounted. But on the other hand, our sensibilities, right, or mental aptitude for observation, um, to analyze things, to still visualize things. We still need to visualize. I think I think that's the only differentiating thing for design today, right, from other disciplines. We put, the visual aspect ahead of everything else. We are very visually driven, and that's the big differentiator actually for design. Uh, so there will be visualization. There will be the sense of, visual thinking is still required, but not hand skills so much. You should like research. You should like a lot of field work. Uh, you should absolutely be able to work with, a lot of other people, to meet people, quiz them, query them, talk to them, ask them. Uh, I think, language proficiency is required because of that, to condense, for, spoken responses into, your own notes and such, right? There is critical thinking, there's creative thinking here involved. A lot of, I mean, your potential for imagination is still needs to be very high. Uh, See, I think one very distinguishing thing about design is, our ability to integrate, right, from very distinct, very disparate sources, right? Our solutions come from some very, very vague combinations of two very distant things. That happens in design school. That happens in the first year of design school. Everybody gets it. We all get rewired to do that. So it's just a sense of, I don't know, passion, wasn't it?
And this should come out in their portfolio. It should come out and this actually does come out in their portfolio and in how they portray themselves and how they present themselves, right?
Yeah.
So maybe being articulate on how they would like to present themselves would also be a very critical function.
Yes. See, I don't know if I can be a little critical here, see, you're supposed to be the Google generation, and I mean today, the young generation. Everything's a Google away. And very curiously, a lot of them don't go and seek out information. For a generation that's been brought up on information at the fingertips, they don't seem to go out and seek out enough information. So I'd encourage them to read, understand, and broaden their own mindsets. I think that's critical. I mean, before this interview, right? For all of them, for any discipline, I think you should go out there and see what's going on. Be better informed. After all, the information is right there. It's just one click away.
All right. Um, Another question. Could you please give an example of the course mix that is created to support the transdisciplinary approach? All
Good
right.
question.
Yeah. So course mix meaning what are the subjects for the stream offered by RV? Yeah.
See, we have some good amount of theory. I mean, very primer, right? So I don't know. We want you to learn psychology, primer on psychology, because at least get the vocabulary of psychology. Because eventually you're stepping into territories where you're studying organizational psychology or behavioral psychology. You will get a primer on all the liberal arts subjects. So I think that's one differentiating factor about this course, that that you will have to be primed with wide width of knowledge, uh, just very fundamental, very fundamental way, so that you're comfortable with reading and relating to things. There is also a lot of emphasis on visualization techniques, data visualization and information design, and so I mean very traditional in that sense. And yeah, all kinds of narrative, communication techniques. So that's there. There's an emphasis of that. There is an emphasis on research methods, right? So that not because you have to you can be a specialist researcher as well in future. Definitely a transdisciplinary designer can be a good researcher. But today we have a lot of research studios, pure research studios, and a lot of them are already into practicing some form of transdisciplinarity. At least in the problem spaces, they're challenged to research into. So there is a research component, and you understand methodologies to the extent that you can improvise and understand. Because as a researcher, you need to be a little objective about how you research, and also very keen about what you find out in research, how you consolidate information. So research is also, there's a lot of stress in research. And of course, the cream is, I don't think I can reveal it here. The way we have organized our projects, right? I mean, every semester there's a project. It's a very, very different model, at least in this discipline. It's a very exciting way to do things. So,
Exciting, and that's very interesting to know. I mean, I've seen the student work at RV multiple times, and it's very interesting to see what they've come up with. And on that note, Professor Sudhakar, thank you so much. Oh, there's one last question from Vishal Gupta. So Vishal Gupta is saying one general question. I guess RV started in 2019. Did we have the first batch pass out yet for design? If so, what were the placements and other opportunities they've opted for?
we started in 2020, and our first batch is entering I think after December. In December, they move on to their final semester, which is the graduation project, right? Which they will do at some client location or something self-initiated. So they have one more semester to finish. I think, which is the big one, semester-long project that they will deliver as their graduation project. So they will commence on that from late December or early January. So they're just finishing up right now their seventh semester, actually.
Okay, and for this question, I would recommend that you all also have a look at the e-meet done with the RV, and you'll get a lot more information out there related, because there you'll get the information related to the kind of questions, the kind of companies coming for internships, and kind of opportunities that students have got for internships. So that would help you a lot with this question, Vishal. And with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much, Professor Sudhakar. It's been a pleasure having you over. Very insightful to get a completely different perspective on what transdisciplinarity is and what it means at RV University. Great conversation. I'm looking forward to have many more with you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. If you can remain online.